Today on Free Field Training, we are talking about the Veridian Fact Duty. The Fact Duty is a light and camera designed to be mounted on your duty pistol if you are a police officer, security guard, or anyone else that has to carry a firearm for work. Veridian sent this to me several months ago for T&E, and I have put it through its paces pretty extensively. I also put a little post up on my Instagram to ask what questions you guys wanted answered about the Fact Duty. You can check out my Instagram in the link down below, Tommy_Free Field Training, if you want to be part of the conversation in the future. But I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, some of the things that it's good for, some of the things it's not so good for, some of the pluses, some of the minuses, things you're probably not going to get from other places about the Fact Duty, and about putting cameras on duty weapons in general, and about weapon lights in general, and some of the considerations we have to think about using this product or evaluating any products like it. So the Fact Duty is a 1080p video camera that mounts under your pistol, and it links up with any of the auto activation holsters that Veridian has for it. Now, one of the big things that Veridian did that's a plus, especially for any duty light, is they paired up with Safariland and several other holster manufacturers to make sure that when this came out, it hit the ground running with stuff that you can immediately put it into use with. Unlike some weapon lights, where the weapon light comes out and then you have to wait 6 months or a year or forever before anybody makes a holster for it that works, this, straight out of the box, you can buy the light for your pistol with a holster, and everything works together. And it has to work together seamlessly because their auto activation system works off of magnets. So there's a magnet mounted on the bottom of the holster, and whenever continuity with the magnet is lost, the camera automatically comes on. Now, you can also set this up so that the 500 lumen light comes on every time it's pulled out of the holster as well. I don't recommend that for most purposes, especially for duty weapons. For police and security work, you're not going to want, if somebody's carrying a gun for police or security work, like they're doing it professionally, you don't want the light auto-activating, but you do want the camera auto-activating. And that's one of the big advantages of this system for a camera, is that there's no having to remember to push a button like with a body camera. Everything to the end user, other than charging it, is automatic. So let's talk about one of the first questions people asked about this when I put it up on the Instagram, and that is about charging it. So if you are the type of person that uses their duty pistol very infrequently, it almost never comes out of the holster. Let's say you use a Safariland holster and use it with one of these detaching systems. So when you come home, you don't have to take this out and unload it. You can just take the whole holster, throw it into your safe, or if you go to court, you unmount from the docking system and throw it into the weapons locker at work, and then clip it back on when you're done with court or done in lockup. If you're using that and it's just sitting in the holster and it's not activating, you're not using the light, you're not using the laser, and you're not using the camera at all, it can sit in the holster for 3 years. So it's kind of a set it and forget it. My big problem with that is at 3 years, you might actually completely forget about it if you just put this into the weapons rack at work, and then when you do pull it out 5 years later, it won't work. So my recommendation, just like my recommendation is with weapon lights, is if you do something like this, you set a regular regimen for charging it. I am on midnights every 3 months. Every 3 months, I change out the batteries on all my weapon lights. That way I know that they're always fresh. If I was going to use a rechargeable thing like this, every 3 months I would just charge it. And it might only take 20 minutes to charge if you're not using a lot, but I would just plug it in until the light goes green, and then you're good to go. Another thing with charging on these is that it's a detachable battery on this. So the batteries can be hot swapped. So if you're using this for a police department, or you're the type of person that's going to use the weapon light a lot, you can dismount the battery from the system, and you can charge this battery separately and put another battery in there. Obviously, you have to buy more than one battery in order to do that, but it is an option. You're not stuck with just the integrated battery in this like you are with a lot of rechargeable weapon lights. The light itself, and of course, what good is the camera and the weapon light if the weapon light doesn't work all that well? Well, here's some shots comparing this weapon light, the Veridian weapon light. It's 500 lumens. Of course, there's not a whole lot of throw because of the very small size of the light head here, but it gets the job done fairly well within the envelope of what we can expect. The vast, overwhelming majority of shooters with the vast, overwhelming majority of weapon lights, here's how well it does. For comparison, here's how well a TLR-1 does, and here's how well a Surefire X300U does at that exact same task. Is it the very best weapon light in the world? No, not necessarily, because it's doing two things at once. Will it get the job done, especially indoors? In my experience, using it around work, playing with it at home, yes, it should be just fine as far as light output is concerned, especially indoors and within that envelope, within your 30 yards, 25 yards, 15 yards, realistically, that most people are going to be comfortable deploying a pistol and actually using it at. It's going to work for that range, that envelope that the pistol's good for. The camera itself, like I said, it automatically activates when you pull a pistol out of the holster. So you can see when I remove it from this holster here, there's little lights that are blinking at the bottom of the camera right there. And when both these lights are green, that means that you've got plenty of storage space and you have plenty of battery. So if you need to check the camera, you just pull it out of the holster, flip it over, look, if there's two flashing green lights, you're good to go. You put it away. It doesn't need to be charged. It doesn't need to be downloaded, any of that. The camera's 1080p. It's 112 degree field of vision. And so that's what one of the big questions over on Instagram from my audience was what's the field of view on this? And also, can it see more than the human eye can see or less than the human eye can see at night? Now, that's kind of hard to show on camera, but in my experience, it tends to lock right at about where my eyes are with what it can see given the circumstances. Now, obviously, if you have it auto-activating with a light, it's going to see a lot better because it's going to be throwing out 500 lumens of light out in front of it. But if you don't have it set to auto-activate the light when you pull it out of the holster, which again would be my recommendation, it doesn't see any better than the human eye, but it also doesn't see a whole lot worse. The camera is only picking up so much light from out in the world, and it doesn't have like an IR emitter. It's not picking up IR, so you're not going to have that night vision effect that you get with some body cameras. One of the big advantages to this camera system is that you're always going to have video when the pistol comes out of the holster. So there's nothing to remember to activate. There's very little training on using the camera system itself. One of the big downsides is there's very little context to the video. So if something happens and you react to it and you draw your pistol, you're not going to get the thing that happened that caused you to draw the pistol. You're just going to get everything from the point that it no longer made continuity with the magnet in your holster to the point where you put the pistol back into the holster. That's what your video is going to be. The plus side of that is you're not going to completely miss because you forgot to hit a button on your body camera to get that context, but you're going to lose that context. So you're always going to have video, but it's not necessarily going to show the context of why the incident happened. The big plus side of that always is that we have the gun's eye view, which means for a lot of circumstances where our body camera might be obstructed, let's say a car door during a felony stop. Our current training is to mount a body worn camera low down on your torso so that it's not being obstructed by your pistol out in front of you. Well, that's all well and good, but if we get out on a felony stop and we're standing behind a car and pointing our pistol around it, what we're going to get is just video mostly of the back of the car. Or if we're an old-timer and we're still doing felony stops at the door, even though we shouldn't be, we're going to get video of the inside of the door. Or as we're getting out of the car, we're only going to get video of the door. If we're shooting through a windshield, we're going to get video from a body camera of the dashboard of the car. With this, when you pull the pistol out and point it out through the windshield, you're going to get pretty close to what the gun's pointed at because the camera is right down at this level, right by the muzzle and the sights. If you shoot over the side of a car, as long as the whole gun is clearing the edge of the car, you're going to get video of what you're shooting at or what you're aiming at. If you get out and the door's obstructing your body camera, you're still going to get video from the gun camera. So the advantage, if you're the person deciding to buy a body camera, with this system over going directly to a body camera system is multifaceted. And of course, there's pluses and minuses to it. One is that you have to have, with the weapon-mounted system, at least this one, you have to have a holster that is designed for the system. So it's not just a matter of, here, throw this on your vest cover, and then there's no more hardware requirements. There's additional hardware requirements in having to have an integrated holster system, and the holster and the light has to integrate with the pistol. So you've got three things that you need to come together in order to make this happen. So if you've got a bunch of guys on a department or security company that are using a bunch of different types of pistols, that's a consideration. You can't necessarily deploy this across your fleet if everyone isn't using a pistol that there's holsters currently available for. And as we know, holster selection is kind of a difficult thing, especially duty holsters when people start getting into more eclectic pistols. The big advantage is cost. Deploying this is a lot cheaper just for hardware than the body cameras, but because these are going to record so much less video, remember you're only recording video when the pistol comes out. You're only going to have video of your most critical of critical incidents that are going on, and then some daily routine stuff checking to make sure the camera is still good. You're going to have a whole lot less storage capacity needs. There's some police departments that have deployed these that are just putting the video on the chief's laptop. Departments with 6, 7, 8, 10 people. They download the video every month or so because there's a lot of storage capacity on this thing. There's about 28 gigs of storage. And then at the end of the month, they download all of them and they have all of their video put away. For a body camera, even 10 officers who are going to 6 or 7 calls a day, you're going to have massive video storage issues. Another consideration is training. There's very little training necessary with this because other than the upkeep of the hardware and having to download video every once in a while and having to charge things instead of replacing batteries, there's very little for the people who are using it to change their day-to-day use of the tool that it's attached to. The use of the pistol doesn't change at all. The use of the light doesn't change at all. If you're using a weapon light currently that you tap to get constant on and hold the button to get momentary, there's absolutely no difference between using this and using that on the street during an incident. So there's very little of that type of training. Unlike body cameras, where you have to worry about activation and how much backlog you have, and then how long it's going to take to deactivate it when you're done, and making sure people know what all the different buzzes and beeps mean. You don't have any of those training issues. There's also legal implications, at least in our current environment, between using a body-worn camera and using these. The big difference is lots of states, like where I'm at in Illinois, are starting to implement statutes about body camera use, what types of body cameras you can use, about backlogging, about how long you have to keep video and all of that. And a lot of those things don't apply, at least not yet, to weapon-mounted cameras. You can't have a backlog on a weapon-mounted camera because it's going to be in a holster. So even if you could start recording before it came out of the holster, all you're going to get is video of an empty box. You're going to get the video of the inside of the holster. So from that standpoint, it makes it a lot easier both on the officers, on administrators, and writing policy to have the camera mounted on the pistol. Again, the downside is you don't get all that context with the pistol. I think that Veridian actually missed a huge market with this in not making a long gun version with a pressure switch, at least not yet. And I think they missed a huge segment of the market in not reducing this down to size and making it where you would be able to put it on common concealed carry pistols. You could get it for a Glock 19 with an outside the waistband holster. I'm sure there's other holsters that are coming out where a mid-size, a compact, or maybe even a subcompact pistol, you might be able to fit this on and get a holster for. But I would love to see something with this in the TLR 7 range, where it's going to fit on a slim line, maybe single stack 9mm pistol, because I think that would be a great use for this. I get where they're coming from, the law enforcement market. I do think that could be a use for it, especially for individuals or agencies that don't really have the money to go into a body camera system and pay tens of thousands of dollars for storage every month. But I think in the concealed carry market, this could be huge because there's a lot of people that are very worried about their liability with concealed carry and what if something happens or someone accuses them of doing something that they didn't actually do. You think about it, if somebody calls the police and says, that guy pointed a gun at me, and he goes, whoa, 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 there's a camera mounted to that gun. I can prove I never pointed it at him because the camera recorded everything that I did. I think that's a market that they haven't gotten into yet, that I think this actually has lots of legs in. And in that environment, I think the auto activation system might actually be a big plus for a lot of people who want to have that automatic. They pull the pistol out, their light comes on, their laser comes on, the camera comes on, everything's being recorded, and they can easily see and do what they have to do without having to learn buttons and switches and things like that. From an administrative point of view, if we can go off on that tangent for a second, The software for operating the system is fairly easy. The camera itself is password protected, so whoever owns the camera owns the ability to take stuff on and off of it. So if you own a security company, you don't have to worry about issuing this out to your people and having them delete video off of the camera. You can also set presets for the resolution and whether or not it automatically dumps video when it reaches full capacity. So if it gets to, the 28 gigs, does it dump the old video and keep putting new videos on, or does it preserve the video and not record anymore? You can set all that in presets, and it's fairly easy to use, and the software is free on Veridian's website, which is also fairly easy to use once you find it on there. They send instructions with all of it that explains how all of that works. I haven't had any problem as one individual with a full-time job and this thing going on part-time figuring out how to operate this. It took me 20 minutes to go on my computer and learn how to download all of the information and then be able to download video of what's going on. As an example, I know people are going to want to see field of view and all of that, so this is me on the camera, and this is me recording from about the same position with the Veridian FactDuty at 1080p. You can see the field of view is a little wider. It's not quite the 120 degrees from my S20's, fisheye view camera, but you can see that it gets almost to the extent of what the human eye would see looking straight forward with the sights. So jumping into some of the questions from my Instagram audience. One was, how much runtime do you have on it? Now, in my testing, I went from fully charged, turned the thing on, put it on my kitchen table, and just waited for the light to go off and the camera to shut off. And from on with the light on to everything shut off was a little bit over an hour. Does it mount to all types of pistols? Well, holster availability is out there, but kind of limited primarily to your more popular pistols. It is set up through a small sliding screw system to fit onto pretty much any type of railed pistol. You could even mount it onto a railed rifle, but you would need some sort of clip system for the auto activation that doesn't quite exist yet. Another question we got was, how do you deal with having to put the gun down inside of a lockbox if you don't have or aren't allowed to have this type of unmounting system for your holster? If you're going to use it as a detective, or you're going to use a system that doesn't have that mounting clip system, there is a pad, and as long as you put the pistol on the pad, there is a magnet mounted in here, and that shuts the camera off. So if you're going to implement this as an agency, you put these into all the lock boxes at work. When you pull your pistol out and put it on there, it shuts the camera off so you don't get a bunch of extra video. One caveat to that is if you go to court, they are very unlikely to have the special pads in their lock boxes, so you may eat a little bit of the camera running when you're at court. So if you take this to court and you're there for 4 hours and the camera is running in the box, you're probably going to be all right. You're going to have plenty of runtime with just the camera running. You're going to have a whole bunch of clips to download, but you're going to want to charge it directly afterward, which is okay because you can USB charge it directly from the pistol, or you can take the battery off and charge it on the docking cradle. Again, just like radios, you're going to want 2 batteries for this thing charged all the time. You're going to want a pile of charged batteries in the station somewhere so people can hot swap them if they need to. You do not need to take the camera off of the gun in order to download video, but you do need access to all of it. There is no over-the-air uploading the same way we have videos in the squad car setup for. Another thing people ask is there a weight difference between this and other weapon-mounted lights? There really isn't. I can't tell any type of difference. Any difference in weight with something that's that small and made of aluminum is probably going to be academic at best, so I wouldn't worry about it. One of the common questions we got was about storage, and because you can download video from the camera and load it to any computer, you could also load it into the proprietary systems that other companies are creating for their body-worn cameras, different evidence tracking systems. You can upload that multiple different ways. You could download this onto a computer and send yourself a link from the evidence tracking system, or you could upload it directly from the computer into the evidence tracking system, depending on what's cheaper for your agency or easier for you. Another question was, is the mechanism finicky? Now, with all of my playing with this, both with a real pistol and with the essentially red gun that I'm using to mount this on, all the different times that I pulled this out and put it away and pulled it out and put it away, it has never failed to activate or failed to deactivate once it went back in the holster. All the clips, you can actually see the light coming out of the holster as it's activating, and then you can watch it go back into the holster and deactivate almost immediately. So the system does not appear to be finicky. One comment people had, not necessarily a question, was about the lens on the camera, and if you shoot enough, you're going to fog up the lens. Well, that's true of all weapon lights, especially on pistols where the muzzle doesn't extend further than the front of the light. So for my Glock 35, it's significantly less of a problem. One of the great reasons to go to a long slide pistol for your duty weapon, like a full-size pistol for your duty weapon. But this is something that has been solved a long time ago with our friend Blue Painter's Tape. People already now put Blue Painter's Tape over the light on their gun if they're going to the range and it's daytime. It's the same procedure with this. You take Blue Painter's Tape, you run it over the top of it, make sure you get it between the muzzle and the front of the gun so it doesn't just get blown off, and then when you're done with your range time, you take the Blue Painter's Tape off. If you're going to the range and you're going to do that, I would put Blue Painter's Tape on it, and I would make sure to charge the battery afterward. But again, that's the same type of maintenance that you're going to have to do with pretty much any weapon light other than checking the batteries. The final question is, how well does it integrate with other technology? Can you connect this to something like Google Glass or to your cell phone through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth and be able to peek corners with the camera on the gun while keeping yourself behind cover? That functionality doesn't exist, and realistically for police and security work, I don't know that that's a particularly good idea. Just like how we're not going to point our flashlight at things, use the pistol as a flashlight and point them around at things that we know aren't a threat, we're probably not going to be peeking corners with the camera on the front of our pistol. If we want to do that, there is something that already has that technology, and it's called a cell phone. You take your cell phone, you put it at wide-angle lens, and you poke that around the corner, and then you can see really well around the corner without exposing yourself. And since we all carry cell phones, whether it's against policy or not, that's my recommendation if you want to peek corners. On top of that, you can actually record around corners with a cell phone, which can sometimes be useful. So that's everything I have right now on the Veridian Fact Duty, what I think of it, and some of the pluses and minuses. If you have comments or questions about it, please put them down in the comment section down below. If you want more technical specifications about frame rate and how long different run times are specifically, there is a link to the products page down in the description. Please feel free to peruse that. If you can't find the answer anywhere else, you can find me right here on YouTube, also on Instagram, Facebook, and podcasts, and a bunch of other places. We're going to put links to all of that down below as well. Until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. And while you're here, why don't you check out some of these other goofy videos that I've made? Or you could subscribe or maybe go over to Patreon and see how you get your name put on the videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are, of course, down in the description. We'll see you guys next time.